I want to tell you a story. A story that is not meant to be taken too seriously. It is not meant to be a funny story either. Not really anyway. I just want to ponder and talk about this situation the world is now facing. This corona pandemic. Focusing on my homeland, Iceland. When this is written, on Thursday, March 26, 2020, a global epidemic is plaguing the world. A new type of coronavirus, said to have originated from the Hubei province in China, has crumbled the world and more or less stopped everything. Schools, factories, restaurants, concerts, theaters, sports events, crowded workplaces, travel and conferences, yes, more or less everything has stopped. Nobody remembers anything like this, which is understandable, since nothing like this has ever happened before. SARS-CoV-2, as the virus was officially termed, causes acute disease called COVID-19. The COVID-19 mortality rate is high, between 2 and 5% in the overall infected. About 15% of those who are elderly and or with underlying diseases die from this virus infection. Avoiding infection is tricky, since an infected person does not show symptoms until 5 days after getting the virus, and on top of that, some infected people have absolutely no symptoms at all. To stir things up further, this virus gives most people only mild symptoms that can easily be confused with the common cold. By some misfortune, COVID-19 flared up in the middle of winter in the northern hemisphere, precisely when the common cold and influenza are in season. Unlike some other viruses like Ebola, with about 50% mortality rate, and MERS, with about 35% mortality, the new coronavirus is not an acute killer. MERS and Ebola killed their hosts too quickly. That's why their spread was so limited and regional. Unfortunately, the SARS-CoV-2, or the coronavirus, as it is commonly referred to, is even more contagious than cold. It is almost as if the new coronavirus was designed to spread rapidly around the world, choke healthcare systems with overload, wipe out the sick and the elderly and virtually stop the global economy. It's probably only me, but I can't help thinking that something might, just might, be stirring underneath the surface here. I mean, you don't have to be a conspiracy buff to start thinking that someone is to make a huge profit on the world's stock market's responses, panics and consequent fire sales, manufacturing antigen and antibody tests, not to mention patterning a vaccine. Record high marketing indexes are plummeting into a record low abyss in only a month, due to some previously unknown virus spreading around the world, crumbling the world economy like something never witnessed before in history. Everybody is afraid. Nations, businesses and individuals are experiencing tremendous income losses, and most who will stay afloat will have to dive heavily into debt. Half the Earth's population is in isolation, curfews and the fiscal policy of the day is dead. Wow. Did anybody mention conspiracy? When, on top of that, I read in the news that a record number of 219 CEOs of some major international corporations, among them Bill Gates of Microsoft and Bob Iger, CEO of Disney, suddenly all stepped down from their posts in January, minutes before the pandemic, I really got a little, just a little, dizzy. Well, now that I have had my little fun, let's check out some facts about this new coronavirus. This new coronavirus is said to have originated in China, specifically, in the Hubei province. Supposedly it can be traced to a fish market in the city of Wuhan. The theory goes that this virus must have existed in some animal, probably for a long time, but somehow mutated and started infecting humans, who handled, or even ate the animal. Some even talk about bats. Why bats are connected to a fish market is as much of a mystery to me as it must be for you. Anyhow, personally I find it a bit strange that people, who regard themselves as rational thinkers with scientific minds, swallow that origin story without a tiny bit of evidence to back it up. However this virus originated and was transmitted into humans, it is pretty clear that it is really contagious and quite an acute killer, or is it? I, like others, have been closely monitoring the COVID-19 infection rate, accelerating around the world. Is it just me, or do others also find it strange that Italy, a nation of 60 million people, with a sophisticated healthcare system, is experiencing a way higher mortality rate from COVID-19 than China? Wait a minute. China, a country 20 times larger in population, where the virus originated, has lower death rates than Italy. Let's not forget the fact that Hubei province alone has about the same population as the whole of Italy. So statistically, the mortality rate, just in Hubei province, should be about the same as that of the whole of Italy. On top of that, the Italians knew what was going on from the get-go, but the Chinese didn't. Well, I, at least, am skeptical about these facts. I mean, even the death rate in Spain is now higher than in China. Seems to me that there is something rotten in Rotterdam. Oddly, it is not only China that has achieved amazing results in the fight against the new coronavirus. In almost all of Asia, the mortality rate from COVID-19 is on the level of common influenza. Take for example Hong Kong. Hong Kong, a Chinese province, although with some form of autonomy, has over 7 million inhabitants. Confirmed infections, as of this writing, 410. That is only half of the infections in Iceland, which are 737. Yes, per capita, 40 times more infections in Iceland than in Hong Kong. Iceland, a country that was well prepared, isolated infected people early on, screened more suspected cases than any other nation proportionally, and had its first confirmed infected case much later than Hong Kong. Consider also the fact that Iceland is way less densely populated than Hong Kong, is located on the other side of the globe. I don't know about you, but for me, somehow, these figures don't add up. Can anyone tell me, claiming to follow scientific critical thinking, that this is statistically possible? Another example, Vietnam. A country of 100 million people, 148 confirmed cases, when this is written, no deaths. Compare that to Iceland, a country of just over 300,000. To have died from COVID-19, and Iceland has 5 times higher infection rate than Vietnam, which has its borders to China. Either the European and Icelandic health and epidemic authorities are totally incapable of dealing with the problem, or there is something bent with these figures. Now, someone might say, one cannot rely on figures from dictatorship states like Vietnam or China. All right. Let's take the third example from Asia then, Thailand. There is a country of 70 million people, with about 1,000 infected cases and only 4 deaths, according to official figures. Why is this discrepancy in Europe? And yes, don't forget, North America is now beginning to get its share and is experiencing a huge increase in confirmed infections and accelerating deaths due to the virus. Well, I'm no scientist. However, I do possess 2 university degrees, one of which includes statistics, so I know a thing or two about statistical probabilities, scientific approach, and critical thinking. There is something about COVID-19 that does not add up. And what could that be, I wonder? I have often, over the years, surfed the internet for videos and articles about all kinds of conspiracy theories for fun and inspiration. Having reviewed these strange COVID-19 figures, this unprecedented situation and unpredictable consequences, I decided to browse the internet for conspiracy theories and check out what the World Wide Web's conspiracy buffs had to say about the matter. But guess what? Not one video on YouTube about conspiracy theories concerning COVID-19. When I typed in the keywords corona and conspiracy, the YouTube search engine did not even finish the word conspiracy, as it normally does with all other words. It was as if the search engine did not even know the word. Fair enough, I thought. YouTube has been blacklisting everything about conspiracy theories pertaining to this pandemic. After all, the situation is bad enough. Determined, I linked the words conspiracy and corona and up came some news agency videos about Chinese allegations, claiming that the US was behind the origin of the COVID-19, followed by some Western news agency responses that all of this was due to some Chinese failure within a biochemical weapons research facilities located in the Wuhan province. The Western newsreel stated it to be a well-documented fact that for several years, some countries have been researching, for example, SARS viruses for military purposes. Well, at least I could see through mainstream news media, uncensored by YouTube, that authorities in some countries have been researching coronaviruses with military intentions. Nothing new there, but nice to have it confirmed. But not a single video where Peter or John chatter on about conspiracy, pointing out the New World Order behind it all. This gave me a reality check, equally chilling as that of the virus outbreak itself. What was supposed to be a free flow of open information in an information world, the internet, has now become a carefully crafted information handling. We live in a totally censored world. What was supposed to be open and free access to free information on the World Wide Web is now precisely managed information feed. We only get to know what we are meant to know. The censorship is wrapped in the context of devouring evil. Hurtful and socially demeaning voices are to be banned. Voices like those who preach hate and terrorism, fake news, and derogatory comments. And everybody agrees. We all like to exclude terrorists from reaching out with propaganda and abusive rhetoric. But who decides what is terrorism? What is hate speech? Fake news? Abusive? What gets through to you and the rest of the world has all been decided upon without much discussion, let alone consensus. Who is spreading fear and has some sinister motive to alter our lives? Who is the terrorist? Who decides what is hate, fake, terrorism, or derogatory comments? Google? Facebook? Sure looks like it. These information giants decide what we know today. But who is behind these giants? And might there be an agenda? Have you ever thought about the fact that there is a whole new generation that has grown up thinking, if it isn't on Google, it doesn't really exist? A whole generation of people believes, if what you are claiming is different from what is stated on Google, then you are wrong, absolutely wrong, without a doubt. And guess what? Google is a private non-governmental organization, not built on the principle of getting the truth out there for the truth's own sake. It's based on marketing principles and, well, who knows? Since it is a private enterprise. And that is the truth. Just let that sink in for a while. Okay, Google doesn't want me to see some videos by some conspiracy nuts crapping on about COVID-19 being intentional New World Order stuff, fine. Doing this research, however, I came across a news bulletin in Iceland. A new phrase has emerged. Infection tracking software. A new app is being developed, and people are being encouraged to install it into their phones. The app will track all your movements in order for the authorities to trace down paths of infection. It all sounds insanely scary, and yet extremely sensible at the same time. If I have this app on my phone, the government can contact me and inform me that yesterday, I was in close proximity with an infected person and I better come in for an examination. The Icelandic hero cop, the superintendent Víðir, on the news, claimed being skeptical at first, but later being reassured that the data collected was only meant to protect against contagion. In fact, he stated, "There is nothing else going on here. Google and Facebook are not doing every single day. Singapore, China and South Korea," he said, "have all, for example, successfully used this technology in fighting the coronavirus outbreak." I begin pondering about the low Asian infection figures. Images from videos I have seen circulating the internet flicker in my mind. Pictures of howling people being forcefully removed and packed into ambulances and minivans by the Chinese authorities. I also come to think of 9/11 2001. After that, the Western public, and pretty much the whole world, gave up much of its freedom for security against terrorism. Now, we seem to be doing the same for virus protection. Could it be possible that something remotely related to conspiracy might be going on this time behind this all? Could it be that this coronavirus outbreak has something to do with someone invigorating their control and power? Might there be something or somebody sinister behind the scenes? No, just saying. The coronavirus pandemic is a grave and a serious matter. It emerged randomly and is now spreading like a wildfire across the world. This is a pandemic, similar to the Black Death and the Spanish Plague. There are no evil forces behind the scenes on the move. Only nature, perhaps striking back after all the terrible treatment. The fact that as a result, we all have lost some rights, human rights, and the fact that some people will emerge from this extremely richer and more powerful than before, all of that is merely a random coincidence. Yes, I know that some rich and powerful individuals have claimed, in the past, that Earth is overpopulated, and we need to reduce pollution, and that the population age distribution is becoming absolutely unsustainable. But, claiming that the consequences of this horrific pandemic is fulfilling their vision, with people willingly caving themselves in and giving up their civil rights, claiming, even insinuating, all of that being something other than a mere coincidence. That is, utter nonsense and delusional. So don't even think that.